Dr. Richie here. Today I have an interesting theory to talk about regarding Advance Wars Days of Ruin. But before we start, I would like to thank Samyami for allowing me to translate his original theory into English. He makes Advance Wars related videos in Spanish. So if you can, please make sure to check out his channel. Link in the description. Without further ado, let's take a look at this theory. Those of us who have finished playing Days of Ruin will know that the Caulder we face in the game's final battle is not the real one, but a clone of the original Dr. Caulder. To make things less confusing, I'll be referring to the original Caulder as Dr. Caulder and to his clone as Caulder. Caulder was one of the many clones Dr. Caulder had created of himself to satisfy his morbid curiosity. These clones were used in questionable experiments, which inevitably lead to a battle between Dr. Caulder and his clones. The winner of this battle was Caulder. Knowing that Caulder is way crazier than the original Dr. Caulder, it's safe to say that he followed his creator's footsteps and began to clone himself. This time he would make sure to not meet the same fate as Dr. Caulder, and instead, have absolute control over his clones. We also know that Caulder has 4 sons, Cyrus, Penny, Tabitha, and Isabella. These 4 being clones of himself that he treats as his own kids. Each one of them being modified by Caulder himself to aid him in his research. Let's take Penny as an example. At the end of the game, she tells us how she can sense her family since they are all connected to some kind of system. Said system also allows them to control Caulder's troops more efficiently. Speaking of Caulder's troops, don't you find it weird how his troops look way too different when compared to the other ones? Sure, one can make the argument of the enemy troops being worthy of having a unique design. But what if I told you that there is a specific reason behind all of this? For now, just remember that Caulder's troops have a more feminine body type. While inside the Great Owl, Cyrus reveals to us that Isabella's true name is Luteria, and that she's basically a walking library with every conceivable military fact downloaded into her. Later on, Tabitha also reveals to us that she killed the original Luteria while training, and that Isabella is just one of many clones of Luteria. With this in mind, what if Caulder didn't just use the clones of Luteria for his research, but also used them to strengthen his military? Thankfully, I have 2 points that help add some credibility to this theory. The first one comes from a piece of dialogue in which Cyrus tells us that Caulder doesn't trust other humans. We know that Caulder has worked with others in the past. Greyfield is one example of this, but when it comes to his laboratories, this doesn't seem to be the case. But if Caulder doesn't trust humans, then how come he has people working for him? The second point in favor of this theory comes from the fact that Caulder's troops are also connected to the system that Penny mentions at the end of the game. It would be out of character for Caulder to simply let other humans be part of the system. To wrap things up, let's take a look at Caulder's military, starting from the site from which they come, the Nest. The Nest is Caulder's main laboratory from which he mass produces his troops. Knowing this, it's safe to assume that his cloning laboratories are also located inside the Nest. To put it simply, during the final battle we are killing clones of Isabella, without her or Will knowing about it. Let's take one last look at Caulder's troops. Doesn't their skin color remind you of a certain someone? For all we know, that helmet could be hiding long turquoise hair inside it. Well, that concludes this theory. Make sure to comment down below what you thought about it. Before I go, I would like to invite you all to join our Discord server. There you can chat with fellow Advance Wars fans from all over the world. I'll be leaving the link to it in the description. Take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.